All right, so there was this absolutely hilarious drama that went down yesterday or the day before yesterday. And it was super hilarious, and I'll tell you why. So this is like a legit actual drama that we're looking at because when you talk, and this is technically not in the YouTube news lefty sphere of like secular talk and Jimmy Dore and Sam Cedar, but it's interesting regardless because it does have to do with two progressives. Now, you guys remember the Skeptic community was basically a community on YouTube that existed to basically debunk religion and their garbage, essentially. And then it just went to complete crap somewhere around like 2014, 2015, or 2015-ish. And Dusty Smith from Cult of Dusty and Vadim from The Creationist Cat were like two of the only ones to really be progressive. Now, TJ Kirk has recently been doing some pretty good content debunking Ben Shapiro and other conservative cunts. So they've been doing good. He's been doing good work too. But these two have specifically really gone pretty. And Dusty has been doing a lot of progressive advocacy basically, and he's been doing a really good job. So, and he started his own podcast called The Codcast, and he set up a Patreon with that specific podcast. And apparently that was not very good because there was a podcast known as the Gotcha Boys. I didn't really know much about it. I had briefly heard about it at the time, like a long time ago. And apparently they had only put out one podcast episode in 7 months, which is obviously incredibly nothing. It's basically nothing. You're one podcast away from nothing. And it's this kind of content that's, I guess, supposed to be a visual form of a podcast. So a podcast typically is just audio, but this is video, and it's also an emphasis on visuals rather than just audio. So it's kind of trying to set itself apart from other podcasts, I guess. But obviously that kind of a thing is way too work intensive, and it's not worth it for the output. So the model is really outdated, or it's just not optimal for the situation, obviously. But it just went all bad. Okay, it went all bad, and there was a podcast where Dusty brought on Vadim, and they argued for like over an hour. Super awkward, because you can tell it's like two weird people like just battling it out over this issue. And it's nothing short of hilariousness, dude. Let's keep it real. So what I'm about to do is I'm about to play you some of the funny clips from here, and gonna come back and talk about it.
Yeah.
Can I finish, please?
Yeah, but you're totally mischaracterizing that.
Vadim,
you talk for a long time.
Let you.
All right,
you
okay,
talk,
you're right. Go for it, dude.
You even continuously stopped me and Tim from talking and made us reshoot the segments over and over and over again because you did not like the things that we were saying. We both told you, we just want to free flow and talk, and you're like, no, we have to redo this. It took us how many hours to shoot the first episode did it take us because we had to keep reshooting things because you didn't like what we were saying. You completely took over the show, man. It was not the vision of the original show I had. It was the Vadim show, and it was fine, dude. You put out a good show. Your show is good. Like, you should be proud of that show you put on. Well, and the other shoots, you kept making us redo them over and over again because you didn't like the stuff we talked about. I mean, repeatedly, you stopped our flow and you made us record the same segments over and over again and told us not to talk about the things we're talking about, which is fine. It's your show. You can do that, but you have to just admit it was your show, man. Just admit it. You'll feel better. You made a good show.
No, I'm not going to feel better because I always looked at.
So I want you guys to be back up for me. I specifically, very clearly said that.
No.
So you said that you were going to be the talent, but did they ever agree to it? Or I should say, did Vadim
clearly not.
agree to it?
Clearly not.
Things like that.
All right, let's move on a little bit. So we've been talking about this for 7 months, and after about six and a half months, we only had one full episode shot. And it was around that time, and let me finish. And it was around that time after we filmed the episode, and it was clear I had already told you that you'd taken over the show, and it was clear when you made us shut up and record
your podcast. Let me ask you, Dusty, do you think that doing a podcast with someone is a business venture?
Yeah, I guess so.
Okay, well, in business ventures, non-compete is understood. In business ventures,
not unless you sign a non-compete clause. That's
no.
That's the reason they have non-compete clauses. You have to actually sign those for those to be enforced.
Let's imagine this scenario, okay? Let's imagine this scenario.
Okay.
A band is cutting its very first album.
Okay.
A bass player.
Confident in the show you made. The show you made was good, dude. It could have competed so easily and built up its own audience. You didn't have to try to sabotage my show out of jealousy.
Let me talk, okay? all of this talk of the fact that we only did so many shows in a certain period of time is completely absurd because all of the tech issues that we had.
That video to threaten me.
No.
So you were serious. You were canceling the show before I even woke up, right?
You want me? Would you like me to answer?
Yeah, I would like you to tell the truth. Go ahead.
Yes, I made that video. That was the equivalent. I had made that video a few days beforehand. You thinking that things were over. However, the conversation progressed. No.
The
Stop
reason I
laughing.
thought that because I just watched a video saying you saying it. If you record a video of you saying it's over and you
but I wasn't going to.
Obviously, I think it's over, dude. Anybody would think that.
I just said that I wasn't going to release it.
That's not an ultimatum, dude. It's here. Have all the money it makes.
100% of nothing. Let me read this.
You have to build the show up.
Allow
dude.
me.
It's not going to make $5,000 in the first month. It takes time to build up.
Dusty, allow me to read this last
read
part.
Read your cherry pick, and then I'll read the rest of it for you.
This is not cherry picked,
because you repeatly say you have to delete your Patreon and we're not going forward.
I never use those words.
God, dude.
All right. I'll bet you want to bet $1,000 right now that I didn't say that. Do you want to bet $1,000? Because I will
not bet any money.
I accepted it once he just went ahead and did it, but I cut it off when I learned about his Patreon.
In a heartbeat.
What? I'm quoting you. I accepted it once he just went ahead and did it, but I cut it off when I learned about his Patreon. This is what you said on Twitter. I'm quoting you. You said you cut the podcast off when you learned about my Patreon.
Yeah,
that's what you said.
I cut it off, but that was after we had this long conversation. This is the last thing that we said, truths and things like that. I'm not saying that you're lying, but I just don't think that you're remembering things correctly. So all of a sudden we were just supposed to be okay with that. And in no business situation very few people are going to be cool with that. A band is not going to be cool with its lead singer.
You've already said this. We need to move on with the show, man.
Can we agree that we want? Is this buried now?
Buried?
Are we cool?
I don't know if we are. I don't know if we are.
Do a video about this
because the fact of the matter is that in spite of the fact that I respect Dusty on numerous fronts, I respect him a great deal. I think this whole thing about just not recognizing that it was not cool if at any moment you had said that that's what you wanted to do, and it was before the show had actually come out.
I gotta move on. Dude. You keep saying the same thing over again. I get what you're saying. Right. I apologize that I wasn't communicating enough with you, and I also apologize if you felt like I screwed you over. Definitely was not my intention to screw you over, any of that stuff. But I gotta move on the show. I thank you guys for coming on. Feel free to make your own video about it. I assume you will, and I'll probably play your video.
I don't want to make a video about it. I just really like to move on. But I just
hatchet buried then. Boom, done. So thanks for coming on my show, guys. I appreciate it. Hopefully we can be friendly moving forward, and I thank you for coming on the show.
Kids
I appreciate it.
Always get one of those things where you sign
non-disclosure agreement. Make sure they sign the non-disclosure agreement. Very important. All right, guys. Thanks for coming on. Appreciate it. Later, dudes. All right.
Yeah, so some of the contention going on there is that basically Vadim says that there was this sort of underwritten non-compete clause that underwrittenly exists, which means it's not written and it's not even stated. It's just it's a sort of non-stated but understood agreement of non-compete, which basically means you're not going to put out a product that directly competes with ours as a group, because Dusty started a podcast along with the Patreon along with this podcast. Now that Patreon brings in $169 a month, and that's probably going to go up eventually, but it is pretty interesting to see this kind of whole thing implode based off of a Patreon that's making $169 a month. Now Vadim says he purchased over $3,000 computer to run OBS. Now that's a lot of money for a computer. Especially for a computer, man. I've been talking about this on stream and on my Twitter and everything. It's time for me to get a new computer. I got a new gaming rig, like a really like high quality one, so I can stream and play games at the same time. It's a desktop, and it comes, monitor and Elgato and stuff costs a couple $100. I spent like 2.3 G's on it, and he says he spent $3,000 on a Mac. So it's like, come on, that's like, you didn't need to do that. That seems kind of like excessive for that computer. But anyway, so that's one thing. Also, they put out one podcast in 7 months, which again, as I stated earlier, extremely, extremely low output. That is that's virtually nothing, basically. You basically put out nothing. You put out one podcast. And it doesn't seem like either of them really put out much content because their videos are very labor intensive, especially Vadim's Creationist Cat stuff. That's all very labor intensive. It takes a ton of editing and stuff. And that kind of stuff, if it's not pulling out like a ton of views, there's not really a market for it, and it's just not optimal in that situation. So it's a bit outdated in these specific circumstances. Now, it's just a really weird conflict that's going on here between Dusty and Vadim, but here's what I have to say. This was never going to work. Obviously, it wasn't going to work. You've got two people who clearly have different visions, different personalities, and there was no way, I repeat, no way this was ever going to work. And honestly, it should have ended a lot earlier, to be honest, and this is why group ventures never make it, man, because it's like you take a bunch of different people, each have different personalities, they've got different goals, they've got different visions, and it's so hard to bring everyone together on something like that. And I guess they were trying to do like a sort of, Drunken Peasants podcast-esque type of thing, the type of thing that TJ Kirk had, and it just didn't work. It wasn't going to ever work, honestly. They don't fit together. Dusty says he's the talent, take that how you will. And he says that Vadim would pick all the topics, and that Vadim would keep telling him to reshoot the same lines over and over again. And they just spent an hour talking to each other. And Dusty ended it off quick. They should have kept going to let everything get out until there was no more to be said. Not sure why they didn't decide to do that. I found that to be kind of odd. But they ended it off the same way they started. In fact, maybe worse. Dusty gives Vadim 5 minutes to end it off. And he still has more to say. And I know Vadim can definitely talk for a long time. So it's just, a situation that it's good it came to an end now. Dusty needs to just focus on putting out content, because prior to the podcast, the Codcast, you would only put out like 1 or 2 videos a month, which isn't much content. Like you got to put out more content, and so he needs to just focus on putting out content, and Vadim needs to do the same thing. You know what I'm saying? And I think Vadim's video type is just outdated at this point. If you're not gaining enough from your videos that are extremely labor intensive, you have to switch up your model, dude, because you can't, keep putting in tons of hours into these videos and then not having enough output. You have to figure something out there. So you're going to have to, alter what you're doing and everything like that. So this was a hilarious argument. I mean, it's so entertaining. So this is an actual drama, by the way. Like the Sam Cedar, Jimmy Dore thing, that's not a drama. That's like an actual policy disagreement that ends up in a serious argument. This is like a drama, and apparently this would happen all the time in the Skeptic community, and so that's kind of why it's existing now. But excuse me, let me know your thoughts on this down below.